Welcome back to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Great to have you with us once again. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alan Kornhauser. Hi, Alan.
Hey, good morning, Fred.
Good morning. And with us once again from Sweden, where it's getting dark, is the publisher of The Dispatcher and co-author of The Real Case for Driverless Mobility, Michael Sena.
Good
Oh,
afternoon.
And it's getting dark in the afternoon already.
Yeah,
Whoa,
it's
that's really
4 o'clock and it's almost dark here.
ooh, yipes.
Yeah.
well, you're going to shed some light on things for us anyway.
Yes.
So,
Well, hopefully, yeah.
in the December edition of the Dispatcher, really a preview here, I guess. The lead article in Dispatch Central is a look at the election in the US and an examination of the process, which I guess a lot of us need a bit of a history lesson on.
Well, yes, as you said, it is a preview, and I decided it's not coming out. The whole issue isn't coming out until the beginning of December, but I sent out two parts of it that were in Dispatch Central, and the one I sent out on Friday was America went to the polls on the 5th. Um, no one actually said, Mike, it was the 5th of November, not the 5th of October. But so, um, and the main reason I included that is that I really wanted to make sure that I understood how the whole process works and how it started. And then once I did, I could maybe pass that on to my friends and readers. And I got a lot of thanks back. I also got I got a number of you didn't mention this or that's not quite right, and that's good. That's so it'll be corrected in the final issue when I send it out at the beginning of December. But the main point was to try to explain how we got to where we are today with the electoral college. I always get questions. I mean, that's so stupid. Why do you have that? And how did no one asks how it happened? They just say it's why don't you just have like a parliament? The first guy who gets elected, who gets the most votes wins the election. That's what I try to explain, and I think I
That's
did. And
the
I
way it
think,
is for everything else. I mean, the congressional elections, the governors, yeah, they're all elected directly.
yeah. Yeah, well, we have to go back and say that the Senate wasn't. That didn't come about until much later. They were uh, appointed. The senators were appointed. But to explain at the Constitutional Convention, when they got together and said, how are we going to do this? How are we going to, we've got the 13 of these colonies and are now states. How are we going to make sure that we get the right people in there, and how we're going to elect them? And the point about the states that were primarily the vast majority of the people living in the state weren't going to be able to vote because they were slaves. And the point that I also wanted to get across, because I've kept reading in this sort of post-colonial version of history, that all of the founders of the United States were racists because they only wanted to count slaves as 3/5 of a person. Well, that's not quite what happened, and that's what I also wanted to explain in the article. The South wanted to count all of their slaves as one vote, but they wouldn't let them vote. Um, the northern states said, you don't let them vote, you're not going to get to count any of them. And they compromised. And the compromise was, you can count them, but you're not going to get 100%. That means you're not going to get as many representatives as you would have gotten if you let the slaves vote. Of course, we have to go also back to the fact that women couldn't vote at that point either. I mean, these things came progressively, and we tend to forget those things, or we just, I mean, we maybe learned them in civics class when we were in 8th grade, but that was so long ago that we just have forgotten about it. So this is kind of a reminder, and here
And
we are.
and here we
Yeah,
are
yeah.
in the aftermath that
In the
some are
aftermath.
celebrating and some are trying to recuperate from, right?
Yeah, well, I decided that I was going to I was going to listen and watch from 8 o'clock U.S. time, which was 2 o'clock my time here, 2 a.m. in the morning, all the way up to the point when it looked like the election was called. Although I did turn in at it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I decided I needed a couple of hours of sleep, so I turned in, and but later in the well, by the time I woke up, the election was in Trump's favor. So and it was good. I mean, it was for me. I don't think I've ever done that in a well, maybe I did a long, long time ago, but it was good for me to watch the whole progression, what was going on. And the last thing that I stayed up for was to hear one of them, and it turned out to be Trump. Um, Come on, he didn't declare himself a winner. He didn't say, I've got this many votes, so I won. He acted like he won, of course, and he was very close to winning, but he held off on that, which I think was something maybe a few people advised him to do. Um, but it was good. I mean, it went the progress. And the other thing that I did is I watched both a U.S. station and a Swedish station reporting on these. How the reports were going, what they were looking at, how they were talking, what they were discussing. That was also an interesting way of looking at how the election in the United States, which is very, very important for Europe. It's important for the entire world, but particularly at this point in time. And everybody's on waiting to see what's going to happen with U.S. support of the Ukraine. So,
Well, Michael, I woke up when you went to sleep, I guess
mhm.
2 or 3 o'clock, and saw this is over. And so I went back to sleep, whatever.
uh, yeah,
Whatever. I think, it's the democratic process. It's the democratic process. It's what went in. It's what the rules are, and so on. The people have spoken. So, I mean, it's just whatever. We can go back and, wish we did this, wish we did that, da da dee, da 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 da. But I think,
mm,
it's what it is. It's what it is,
yes, that's right.
you don't want to say, oh, this time it was stolen, last time it wasn't stolen, did it do, but and all that stuff, and just don't, you know, whatever.
One of the differences is this time he did win the popular vote as well as the Electoral College.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that because I haven't watched any of the news since I went back to sleep. I just figured, I've got so many things on my plate that I need to do and keep my nose on to do
Hmm.
that unfortunately, even though I might like to worry about everybody else's problem, my bandwidth can't handle it. And I don't have the bandwidth for it. I'd love to do it and so on. And I wish whatever and whatever and so on. But I've got to keep my nose clean and on the grindstone of what I need to do what I would like to do for what I think I can do, as opposed to, wishing on other people da dee. I can't do it. So
Hmm.
let other people do that. Might have wanted to do. In 2016, with the election, Elizabeth and I decided we weren't going to watch Fox, CNN, or whatever evening news. We haven't in 8 years. I
Hmm.
think first thing I did was um, get rid of my New York Times app. Don't want to see it. I mean, I've been watching what they printed for the past whatever years, and whatever. I don't even want to read it. I mean, I
Hmm.
don't want to see it. Um, we haven't yet stopped our subscription to the New York Times newspaper because I guess we like to do the puzzles or something. And Elizabeth, of course, wants
Hmm.
to see the art section. But I mean, just I can't do anything about it, and to sit there and like whatever. I've got my own things to do that I'm trying to do.
Well, our
Or
friend Bob Vanderbei went right to work though, looking at the stats here, and came up once again with a map with the election data and the color of the
yeah,
country changing.
yeah, and so Bob and it's great. Bob does all the work, and every time I come in there and kibitz with him a little bit on it, and I guess some maybe even 30 years ago we were sort of sitting around and when we were certainly in love with computer graphics and said, "Oh my goodness, the country's not red or blue. It's actually purple. It's a mixture. You know, why now don't we draw it up?" He did all the work. He deserves all the credit. I did a little kibitzing on it. We did a little kibitzing, on Wednesday and sort of put it together. Con if you actually look at the data at the lowest, at the most disaggregate form, at the smallest geographic level that you can, the map is drawn on a county basis, but actually on a polling place basis. What is astonishing about the map is if you look back from it, then the red and the blue merge to be purple to your eye. If you actually go in there and look at it, it is unbelievable. Either red or blue it is. There are very few places in which it's New Jersey being one of them in which it's purple, in which in which there's a melange of each. But boy, I mean, the way that we've ended up geographically locating ourselves because I think the voting places are really a representation of a geography because they tend to make it the easiest that people can go visit. So they're not really that gerrymandered in a form, gerrymandered in the form, although they get to be gerrymandered in the form of aggregation to legislative districts or that sort of thing. But at the actual voting level, they're really representations of neighborhoods. I mean, our neighborhoods are either red or they're blue, and in terms of each of us having, neighbors that are, a melange, it's shocking, at least to me, to us, as we zoom in on the data. As we represent it in the form of counties, that aggregation does come into play because there are red pieces and blue pieces of counties that end up making it purple. But boy, at the actual voting, when you go into the voting place and you go to the table and they say your name isn't, it's kind of astonishing. Anyway, yes, he's put it out, and you can, and what people should look at when they look at it is basically going through the animation from 1960 through 2024 and see how the nation has evolved in purple America. And of course, the interesting thing that you see right away is, in some of these elections, there have been a third candidate that's done very well in certain states, and that sort of ends up being green because of the color distribution that we're using on that. And it's just interesting to see. I mean, it's just data, and it's a presentation of the data and a presentation of the data on a geographic basis. And, again, it's just data that we convert into information.
And there's the link in the latest smart driving.
There's a link there, and I guess it's gone viral. It's gone viral every election because it is it's an interesting way, and to present the information geographically so that we can see it without looking at the numbers in some sense.
And Michael, you talked
Yep.
pre-election and post-election of the role that Elon Musk has played in this, and I think one of your comments was hold on to your hats.
Well, I've gotten a lot of questions from readers after I sent this out. What do I think? Well, I've got my views, but I'm not, got no crystal ball over here. but Trump no, I should refer to him as the future president and past president. He tried to get Elon Musk into his group when he became president back in 2016, and that lasted for maybe a month or a couple of months, and then he got so much criticism from Musk, got so much criticism from his constituency that he decided to pull out of that group, and then eventually everybody pulled out, and there was no longer an advisory, a business advisory group. And he also made it clear at that point that he was supporting the Democratic candidate. And I think, I'm not really sure, I don't recall whether he did support either explicitly or tacitly President Biden. I was
I
rather
think he was a supporter
surprised.
of Yang at one
Was
point.
he? Okay. Um, I was rather surprised that he went all in with Trump in this election, and he must have his reasons. But obviously, Trump wanted both his moral and his financial support, and he certainly provided a lot of financial support to his campaign. Whether it was a help or was just something else that he had with all of the other individuals who were on his team. What's going to happen next with this is really, it's difficult to call, because obviously Trump just can't hand out contracts to people, and the problem right now that the United States has is that they've got one very good space company and a couple of other kind of, they really dropped the ball space companies like Boeing. Um, and then there's NASA in there that really hasn't quite defined what their role is going to be in the future. I mean, are they just going to be the contractor? Or are they going to continue to do what they've been doing, which is actually contracting and building and running operations? The whole thing with the International Space Station, in 5 or 6 years, it's going to do it. It's going to do a dive into this. Well, I'm not exactly sure how they're going to dismantle it, but it's coming back to Earth. So I think there are going to be a lot of people looking at how Trump is potentially benefiting by his close relationship with the president. But this is nothing new. It's not like, people haven't supported the presidents in the past with financially and by endorsing them. So he decided that this time it was somebody who he could support, would support, and he was very enthusiastic about it. I mean, like, if you see the pictures of him with his hat on and with jumping around on the stage and really actively supporting the candidacy of
Well, he was
President
out
Trump.
campaigning for him.
Oh
And
yeah, I mean
this was
he
just
was
a few weeks after Musk's Robotaxi event, which you write about as well,
yeah.
in Burbank. Initially, at least, or during it, Trump didn't sound very supportive of the idea
No, and that's what I
of
wrote as well.
robotaxis.
They hadn't got, either Trump hadn't gotten the memo or Elon hadn't gotten the memo. But I mean, what he was saying is in his presentations. What Trump was saying in his presentation was in Michigan. You know, does anybody know what autonomy is? I mean, do we really want this? No, we're not going to have any autonomous cars. That's bad. That's bad stuff. No. Um, Maybe they had a conversation after that, and someone said, that guy was giving you lots of money. He just spent a lot of money himself promoting his cyber cab. Maybe you ought to have a conversation with him and see if he's, if you're both on this, the same, if you're both on the same page. But yeah, that was also something that I thought it was topical, and I decided, I won't wait to send the final copy. There were some very good comments that I got back, and I've made some adjustments to it. And so when you read it, and when it comes out in December, there will be some changes. But the basic story that he's put out a two-seater cab. That's one thing that I've changed, by the way. Those of you listening, and it wasn't something that someone came back to me with. It was just something that I realized, and I did some further investigation. The two-seater actually does make some sense if it's going to be a taxi, because between 80 and 90% of the rides that people that are given in taxis, whether it's a transport network company like Uber or a standard taxi company, it's single people. It's not multiple people for taxi rides. So if you've got a two-seater and you have no driver, you've got room for someone else. But I mean, if that's the market that they're going to, and that was the main point of this article, if that's the market that they're going after with this, then like most of the companies that are doing this, that aren't developing a multifunctional a rather larger vehicle which can be used for ride sharing, real ride sharing, not the Uber so-called ride sharing, but the real ride sharing where you get multiple people in a vehicle, which is what Alan and I have been discussing and promoting, and this is what our book was really talking about. The real case for driverless mobility is getting people who in a vehicle who need a ride that aren't satisfied, can't be satisfied by a bus or by rail, and don't have the ability to either own a car or drive a car. That's the market, and that's the reason why you take the driver out, not for other reasons, but although we will be talking about other reasons for taking the driver out of the vehicle that have nothing to do with lowering the cost. There are other reasons as well, which will be discussed in our follow-up book.
Well, he did it. He did also show a robo van as well, which
Rabovan. Rabovan. He pronounced it Rabovan. I mean,
some people called it a toaster, but
that's
that's
just it. The toaster, and there's some, someone said it's, it sounds like herpes medicine. It was a, I don't know where that came from. I mean, it really does. My toaster looks better, but there are similarities. I mean, it's like, walrus and a hippopotamus, but yeah, the Rabovan. I don't know why he decided to call it a Rabovan, but yeah, I don't know if he was serious about that or not, or whether it was just he did take a picture of a toaster and blew it up and made it into a van.
well, investors and Wall Street initially after the event sent the stock lower by quite a bit, and then the election happened, and,
Yeah,
and
but
shares
as
went
I
up.
mentioned, in the article, he had already pushed the stock up 40% before the event. So the fact that it went down 8%, he's still ahead. It really didn't make any difference. But then the election happened. I did not mention in the article because I didn't want to kind of push that piece in. The stock market went up 3.5% on Wednesday. Like it had been floating around, up and up 0.5%, 2% down, up and down, 3.5% it went up the day after the election. It settled down, of course, but a lot of that went into Tesla. I don't remember what the number was.
This week, I think
Yeah.
shares were up 32%, which is
Oh, God. Well, God bless everybody who owns Tesla shares.
well.
Yeah, I have my own series of comments that will either make me, loved or hated or whatever, and all that. And I don't know if I'll probably end up making them. In elections, the military-industrial complex has always played a part. And the military-industrial complex has existed because of the politics of the nation. And you know, to me, as I look at it, Musk is not part of the military industrial complex. I don't think he's making bombs. Those others were making bombs. And
Well,
I
I don't
don't
think
know.
Boeing's not making bombs. And what's wrong with making
The
bombs? I mean,
well, I
it's
guess
a
yes, it
big
protects
business
the.
for Scranton. I mean,
I understand. I don't know. I just if I think if I sit back and I look at the businesses that Musk is in, digging tunnels to provide mobility in cities, which is what the boring company does, because it seems as if nobody wants the mobility on the ground or above the ground. So damn it, let's put it underground. Um, I guess I support the low Earth orbiting satellites for communications, even though we can do it by cable, and we do it very well by cable under the oceans and so on and across the sands and whatever. And I guess some astronomers are unhappy because of the streaks that they put on their images. But my goodness, guess what? You know exactly where those pixels are. And then you can use Photoshop to basically erase it. So and you know how to do that. And you've been doing it trivially for 30 years. Just continue to do it. Okay.
Well, the
It
difference,
does,
Alan, with the
anyway.
satellites too is what the coverage. I mean, you can have all the cables in the world, but you're not going to get internet to everyone or communication to everyone. Satellite
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if
can.
you're really somebody who really cares about getting equitable communications to everyone, you should be you should be hailing that. Saying, "Oh my goodness, how else do I do that? How
Mhm.
else do I provide emergency communications from anywhere?" But apparently, who knows what? Da da dee, da da da. It comes out that, of course, not everybody's on if you're an environmentalist and a tree hugger, who else? I mean, maybe electricity is not the way to do it with the sun, but oh my goodness, this guy is doing, I mean, everybody's telling you you're crazy. What the hell are you doing with this sun stuff and this battery stuff and this storage stuff? You're going to lose your shirt. And for some reason, he went in there and continued to do it because of his cousin or who knows what Isaacson has in there in his book about that. But whatever, that's not blowing up somebody. That's not invading some country. And then if you look at the electric car, whether or not you believe it should be electric, whatever, if you think it doesn't have to be everybody, we can have gas and electric, pick your choice, or even a mix. But if you look at who else is doing that stuff, or who else has motivated that stuff, or who else, General Motors had the opportunity 25 years ago to do this with the EV1. What they do, they crushed them all.
Mhm.
They crushed them. They didn't allow an opportunity for that to improve.
And
And so
if you
yeah,
want to read about that, there's a whole chapter about it in our book.
yeah, no, I mean there is, and there are videos and there are all kinds of stuff about that. So,
Mhm.
you know, yeah, you can throw stones at the guy, but I mean if you look at some of this stuff and on the Robotaxi, my personal belief is why would you want to go after the taxi market? That exists. It's been there for 100 years. It does a good job in what it does. There is a hole in the center of the mobility thing that Michael and I point out, the latent demand that has existed for 150,000 years and still exists today of people who can't get to where they really should have the opportunity to go to improve their lives. The systems that we have out there, that we've put out there for however many centuries, millennia, whether it be the horse, the wheel, the chariot, the whatever, the personal rapid transit systems, haven't been a service to those folks.
But Alan, what I've said, what I what I tried to say in this and the Tesla's Robotaxi show article is it, it it doesn't seem to be anything related to the taxi business. It's a small, low-cost car that someone is going to buy for their youngster. You know, they've got Teslas, they've got big Teslas and smaller Teslas and Model Y Teslas, and this is it just seems to me that this was an opportunity for him to do something that he's been talking about on the one side and something he's been pressured to do on the other side, which is to come out with a low cost car. And he's the only way he's going to get a lower cost car is to eliminate all the bigger pieces. So you've got a smaller battery, you've got a smaller chassis, you've got lighter wheels. It's a low cost Tesla. But for some reason he decided that he was going to do two things at the same time. Actually, three. One is show a car that doesn't have a steering wheel. This is what I've been promising. Here it is. It's a car that's going to drive themselves. You know, that's where my valuation is coming from. So there's that. And let's talk about this in terms of, well, what else can you do with it? You know, you can buy it and then you can have people run around it and get paid for it. I mean, he's been pushing that concept. Unfortunately, as Adam Jonas says, he didn't really talk about anything about what the business is and how the business would run and why is this a cyber cab and not just a cyber car. You know, it's instead of a cyber truck, this is a cyber car. It doesn't have the heft, it doesn't have the kind of weight and everything else. So to have made this into a so-called robo-taxi thing just didn't make any sense. Didn't make any sense to me, didn't make any sense to the investors, but it didn't hurt. He's going to show a small car when it probably comes out. When it comes out, it will probably have steering wheels and pedals. It'll be a small car and it will be less expensive. Can we use that in our version of a robo taxi? No, because it's two people and it doesn't do the job that it needs to do. It's to get people around and with all the stuff that they need to carry around with themselves.
Well,
Um,
I mean, we know that we disagree with each other at various times, and hey, disagreement is good. I mean,
mhm.
there's nothing wrong with disagreement. I guess in what I've read, I don't think anybody has tried to convince him to do this. I think it comes internally from him desiring to provide inexpensive mobility to everyone. And I think it's self-generated. I don't think a Trump or somebody else told him, "Hey, you got to do this for your valuation of your company." I guess I don't believe that. I think if
Mhm.
anything, if he wanted a small car, he would put out the Roadster again. He had a two-seater. That's how he started. He knows about how to make small cars.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
What?
It wasn't the Roadster wasn't his idea.
Well,
He did everything to kill the
uh,
Roadster and to go into what he did. That was the real founders of the company
yeah.
of Tesla with the name. That was their idea. So he got
Okay,
rid of
so
them, he
so
got rid of the
yeah,
Roadster and yeah.
sure.
He launched it into space, in
No,
fact,
yeah,
right?
and who actually starts and whatever and takes over? I mean, I know I've never started anything and I took everything over, but whatever that I ended. But I don't want to argue that. You're correct in that point. But at one point, he did put all of his efforts in getting the damn Roadster out there, which he then leveraged into the S, which he then whatever, and I guess moved along.
Yeah.
But at least I've 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 consumed the Isaacson Kool-Aid and all that, but whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but if you take what if you listen to his fundamental principles, which I think are very good. Basically, you want to take parts out of everything, you might make it small, that's how to make it cheap.
Hmm.
Somehow, as in my classes for the last 30 years or whatever, ideas of how to make things affordable, the Airbnb concept came out in my classes 15 years, 20 years before Airbnb. Okay, that you take your asset and you somehow try to generate revenue out of it by, hey, having somebody come in and sleep in one of your bedrooms. Okay. And somehow he's gotten, I think, the idea that if you take something that you pay X for and you can put it out there when you don't use it, which is most of the time with a car, the car sits out here doing nothing for essentially 24th of the day. And so if you look at that, you say to yourself, oh my goodness, if I could set it out there and generate any kind of revenue out of that sucker and any one of those other 23, I not only can make the cost zero, I can get revenue out of this.
Yeah, but Alan,
Okay.
you use Airbnb,
Yeah.
and when I graduated from the university that we were both connected to, and I became a graduate student, I
Yeah.
needed a place to live that wasn't a dormitory,
Yeah.
right? And so within a year's time, I lived in three different places. The first place I lived was with an elderly woman who spoke very good Italian and not so good English, but and I I rented a room from her. I walked in her
Yes.
front
Yeah.
door, I walked
Yeah.
upstairs, and I went into a room. So I was there for about 3 months, but then that got very old quickly. Then an apartment, a real apartment on Bank Street, and I was there for about 6 months. And then finally I moved out to Skillman and I rented a house and then, had friends and we rented the house together. More than 50% of the people who are in the renting out space business with Airbnb are businesses. They don't live there. Either they own buildings or they own houses and they run this as a business. It's not like the mom and pop bed and breakfast in the back, in the room above the garage kind of thing. So I mean, especially if you got a car that sells for around $100,000, you don't really need to be in that business.
Yeah,
The,
but if somebody puts one out there so that you can have your little home and not speak English very well and have Michael Sena rent a room from you, of course you're going to do that. It's going to allow you to live there.
exactly.
It's gonna,
So
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 yes,
you're
yes,
saying
it can
you're
grow,
saying
it can
you're gonna
grow into the
you're gonna
into
say
the
that
uh, the Marriott and the whatevers of this world, but at the grassroots level, I get to have a car that gives me mobility if I can drive it, and I can also put it out there and get revenue from it, so that my monthly payments on this thing are negative. I
yeah,
actually
right.
get, I mean, that's the concept. Now, if you all of a sudden see this as a concept, boom, I mean, you go nuts, which I think has in fact has gotten Musk to say, "Oh my goodness, this is what I want to create."
I'm a firm believer in personal experience.
It's-
I owned a car. I owned a car. My second Volkswagen. I was in At that point. I was in my senior year in high school at college. The car was sitting in the parking lot for most of the time. I had a good friend who was married, and he and his wife really did need a car. So I was in the car sharing business. You know what? I would never, after that experience, I love them, absolutely, still friends, but I would never ever think about doing that again,
well,
ever.
no, I agree with you. I think it ends up being a lousy business
Yes. Yeah.
for the fundamental reason that Musk is so brilliant. I don't know why he doesn't see it. When do I need my car? In the
Yeah.
peak.
Sure.
When don't I need it? In the valleys. What's the value of my car in the values? Marginal value of that thing approaches zero, if not becomes negative.
Yep.
Therefore, I have no opportunity to generate the revenue that would have made my monthly payments almost nothing and positive. And therefore, that's why it is a bad idea. Okay. It's not that, hey, if you assume demand is constant, holy hell, geez, we're all getting rich. It's like when people used to advertise cars on, I don't think they advertise them this way. If you buy this car, you'll get $10,000 back. That used to be the advertisements.
Sure.
I'd,
Yeah.
I'd come into class and I'd show the ad and I said, hey, kids, I'm going to buy 10 of these. I'm going to get $100,000
Yeah.
because I get 10,000 back on each one. Oh,
Sure.
I forgot the 30 I have to pay up front of the do the D. I forgot about all that stuff. So I'm saying, you know, for some reason, Elon hasn't thought about the whole business concept associated with the two-seater for the exact same reason as your readers have said, hey, you can't share rides. Holy hell, if we don't take the opportunity to share rides in the peak so that the peak doesn't become even worse, the only way you can if we had an average of 3 people per car on Route 1 in the peaks, there would be no congestion. So if we really want to deal with the congestion problem, we've got to have ride sharing, real ride sharing. Okay, not, hey, Elizabeth, you're coming along with me. We wouldn't have taken 2 cars. You're coming along with me. But if it's the 2 of us that just happen to be there at the same time, that's the real ride sharing. And we can do that in the peak direction because there are, even in lower density areas, opportunities to do it if you put it out there with the information, with the convenience, with the fundamental service characteristics that are appropriate. You can get it. Therefore, you're going to be able to do the peaks. In the valleys, boom. I mean, you need a ride. Marginal cost of doing that, no congestion to the D, we just do that. Okay. But you've got to have the seats to be able to do the peaks. This is what we've been saying. This is what we're trying. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it, Michael. We're going
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to do
Before
it
we let
starting
Tesla
January 2nd.
Yeah.
Trust me.
before before we let Tesla go here as a topic, they did come out, and you have it in the newsletter, Alan, your newsletter. They came out with their quarterly vehicle safety report, which looked impressive.
Yeah, I put it out there because everybody wants to throw stones at it and something and say they're lying, cheating, and stealing. Maybe they are lying, cheating, and stealing. I don't know. But even if they are, my goodness, the technology that they put in there seems to help. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. And you might complain that, of course, hey, now because of the technology, we're going to be less good drivers. We're going to forget how to drive. We're not going to pay attention. We're going to be on our phones all the time. We're going to hop in the back seat and do whatever we wanted to do when we were 16, 15 years old. Who knows? I guess that there are negatives. Tell me something that has only positives. Okay. I don't, you know, so, but the damn numbers are, Jesus. And we all know, I mean, cars, why haven't cars had automated emergency braking systems on them, for the last 20 years that go this instead of that? Come on. I don't know, whatever. But I guess finally those things are beginning to be in there, and all the other car companies are beginning to do that, and they voluntarily, and it's a claim to buy 2029. Hopefully I'll make it till then. Everybody will have to have it. Thank you, NHTSA, for finally, putting something out there that might have some teeth in it. Sorry.
Yeah, but
I get,
it's not, unfortunately, it's not NHTSA who's behind this. It's the group within the UN that's doing
well,
the
great.
hard work that eventually, the problem has been that there's been no standards that could be applied so that the car companies could develop systems that could be used in
Yeah,
in all of the markets. That work is being done. It's being
yeah,
standardized. It's being implemented. So it's taken time, and at the same time as they were doing the standardization, in concert with the standardization, they were developing the systems, and people couldn't develop the systems because they didn't know what the specifications were. So
yeah,
these are the reasons why things have progressed. And I've tried to I've done what I could so far to try to explain this,
Mhm.
but it's not easy. It's not
It
easy
isn't.
to explain because it's there's this group over there, oftentimes meeting remotely, but also coming together in Geneva, where they do come together rather often, and they communicate with each other, but it just takes time.
Yeah, and of course, if you look at the fundamental business case of the automobile, that's you know what the madmen have sold us is this enormous freedom that we get from this. And you watch the TV commercials of the car companies here, especially here in the United States, every car ends up like on this, there's nobody around in this mountain scene of whatever that God that just this wants to just create all this freedom and avoid all the pressures that we all feel in the societies that we live in. And all of a sudden, if the car companies say, hey, we're not going to let you go as fast as you want, and we're going to apply the brakes when you didn't apply them, and we might do that, and we're going to not let you do this, and we're not going to let you do that. All of a sudden, people will say, "Well, I'll go buy cars from somebody who will."
Mm.
Okay, and so of course, the forces, the commercial forces on this have to let the people, let them go to freedom to do. Okay, fine, but yes, absolutely. The group. So you're talking about the hard work that one needs to do that, and then say, hey, come on, the freedom has gotten you to, misbehave out there, and you need to behave. You can't just be on your phone, okay? You can't just be whatever. You can't just go however the hell fast you want. You can't just cut people off or run up their butts, okay? And you can't just drink. And you can't just go in there not knowing what the hell's going on. I knew what was going on. Me drink too. I would never drink too much. I'd never look at me. Look at me. I mean, look at the angelness of me. I mean, I would never do that. Sorry. Yeah, it's
Alan,
tough. This isn't easy, of course.
Alan, we're gonna
If it was easy, it would have been done long ago. We wouldn't be talking about it now.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah,
we're gonna
Yeah.
turn to more in the Smart Driving Cars newsletter, and on top,
yeah,
Alan, you have a wonderful tribute to Paul Michel Lyon the third, who was your PhD advisor at Princeton.
yeah, yeah. It was my doctor father, and I owe everything.
He
Yeah, he made
passed,
me.
passed away
So
last.
he's if you want to blame somebody, blame him.
Mhm.
Okay. Because he did everything for me. He changed my life.
And our condolences, heartfelt, to his family.
Yep.
Elsewhere in the newsletter, Alan, Waymo is now valued at $45 billion. They're getting 5.6 billion in fresh capital.
Great. Who figures who really believes that? I mean, I don't know. I just went through some numbers, mate. I guess I'm not, hey, I buy high, sell low. Okay, what do you want? Don't listen to me. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, but kidding me? What? Maybe, sure. But to me, that if you just say, hey, how much money do you really have to, supposedly value is associated with profit contribution, with the amount of return you get out of it. I guess. And if the amount of return is, not not what you call a moonshot. I mean, where you're expecting a 10x, 100x, 1000x, NVIDIA style, or what happened to Tesla over the past week, just normal. Da, da, dee, da, da, da. Really? Okay, I get it. No, I don't. Sorry, but maybe. Maybe I have zeros missing all over the place. Maybe I don't know how to do exponents.
Chris Urmson, meanwhile, writes
Yeah.
in a quarterly shareholder letter that we stand on the brink of a new era in mobility and logistics. Their commercial launch has been delayed a little bit, I think.
Yeah, yeah, and I didn't link to all the negative response to that, whatever that, all the I'm getting tired of complaining about, what is put out in the normal press. I sort of just went out to the source of these things, and sure, Chris could be lying, cheating, and stealing. I don't think that he is. If I look at their safety report and so on, and the struggles that he's going through to try to make that happen, um, I sort of look at that as reality, and so on. We wish him the very best, and doesn't seem to be putting out the snake oil smoke and mirrors. You know that when you look at some of this other stuff, it just 45 billion valuation. I mean, just are you joking me? Whatever. Anyway, I and so all the best, Chris. Keep it up. Hope you succeed. So he's trying to do something nobody else has been able to do, and
which
do
is
it, do
which
it,
is
do.
to create a company
Aurora.
based solely on delivering a driverless functionality, whether it's in a car or in a truck.
Whether it's in the car or in the truck, and
Yeah.
doing it on a business case and evaluation so that people get return on investment, and in fact do pay for it, and properly reward and do fiduciary responsibility to their stockholders, and just go out there. And I guess, apparently with the election, we're an economy that the private sector is supposed to be generating maybe the return that keeps things going, as opposed to everything coming out of the public sector. Who knows how they create the money to distribute? I don't know.
Well, almost a year ago, I wrote a long piece on Waymo. I have to say I didn't expect to get a lot of comments on it, because it was trying uh, to go through the logic of how you build up a company that eventually becomes something that generates revenue and profit, and doing that within the context of being 100% owned by Alphabet. And I I explained the difference between the companies like Waymo, which were in the one column directly owned by Alphabet, and all the companies that were part of, or companies or divisions that were part of Google. And Waymo is part of the future bets, and Google is part of the primary bets, the alpha bets. So these other companies combined all of the contribution that all of these other companies, Waymo being one of them, delivers to Alphabet, the big company. So you have Google over here, and you have all of these other companies over here. This is about 1% or less, and this is everything else. So either the companies that are in these, potential bets move into Google and become part of the alphabets, or they dissolve, or they just keep hanging on. And Waymo has been there for quite a long time. They haven't been moving. Why haven't they been moving? Well, you could say, well, they're still getting their act together, and they're still trying to put the business case together. But what is this company? What is Waymo doing, and what is it doing inside of Alphabet? as a company. Alphabet is in the ad brokering business. That's what it does. That's where 90% of its revenue comes from, and a large percentage of its profits. The cloud business, it's big, but that's also part of what else is going on inside of Alphabet. If Waymo is going to be a taxi company, which it keeps saying, we're giving rides and that's what it's promoting, and we're in the business of delivering safe rides to people. If it's in the taxi business, then what is it doing that's different, or will it be doing that's different from Uber? And then Uber decides, well, we're actually going to be using Waymo. We're going to take Waymo vehicles and we're going to make them part of our business. And people say, well, that's great for Uber because now you don't have the cost of drivers. Well, they don't have the cost of drivers because the drivers are paying all their own costs. That's not part of the revenue for. So there's something missing. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I'm completely blank when it comes to understanding what Waymo is actually trying to do, unless, as I said in my article, they're in the business of supporting the advertising promotion, the ad generation part of the business. And if you put that in there, it becomes totally clear, becomes very, very clear about what their business can actually be and how that promotes the complete Alphabet business. But if it's to be a taxi business, if that's what they're going after, to be in the taxi business, they're not going to be able to generate enough money to even join the club, to even be inside of Google.
Michael, I think that let me interpret what you're trying to say. If I have this thing, Google, and I want to become part of it, I have to make a substantial contribution to that thing, whatever it is.
Or
Contribute to that, or contribute to that.
Contribute in a way that for
Right.
example, the Google Maps does.
Sure. I guess
They don't make.
I guess Google Maps does. Yeah, no, sure. Yes, Google
Yeah,
Maps does.
yeah,
Google Maps, although they
yeah.
could have bought ALK Maps.
Android, they could have, or Android.
Go that way.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
or
no, but
Android.
sure,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah,
Right, right. But okay, if you look, the taxi companies have tried to put things that get us involved in advertising. When every time we ride a taxi, there's a thing in the back that tries to get us to buy stuff there and whatever. And guess how much? Guess how much revenue that's delivered to the taxi business? Like,
yeah.
I mean, who knows? I guess somebody's making a couple bucks on it. Certainly not the Alphabet size
No,
revenue
no.
profitability that needs to be in that. And the other piece, if I continue on with if you're in the rides business and you say, hey, now the rides business can also be so big that in fact, it fits in and all that stuff to this business and contribute to that. Holy mackerel, I'm not only missing one or two zeros in my previous comment, I'm missing a half a dozen zeros because instead of just returning 10 cents on the dollar per year of profitability, which I'd sort of put in there as a meat and potatoes, my level of investor, objectives.
Mm.
These folks, this was supposed to be a moonshot. This is 100x. This is 1,000x things. Oh my goodness! I mean,
Sure.
what the hell are they going to do? I mean, they really, and make money and make substantial amount of money on each one. And then if you're going to make that much money on each one, then people are going to look at you. I might as well just buy a car and not use you. You have no chance of being. I would suspect. So as I am with you, I just don't understand how it's there, why it's there. It was a great play for them and a great toy and whatever and so on and so forth. Maybe we'll see that they'll spin it off to somebody else at some point in time. And I guess I don't know who's going to go out and pay 45 billion for that sucker, but maybe the flip mentality. There are two business approaches. You can either make it every day or you can flip it.
Mm. Yeah.
Making it every day, I don't think so. flipping it.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Let me
So-
throw this in here. I came across this little piece. The Autopian has a report on a patent application filed by Google through Waymo that would enable a car's autonomous driving system to take over automatically if it detects a bad driver behind the wheel. I don't know. There's not supposed to be a driver behind the wheel with Waymo's
That
system.
that
But
that
the article points out that this is just a patent application, so no guarantees of what happens with it. But
I think it's a joke. I mean, I know it's not April 1st, but I think it's a joke. Somebody thought this was really funny because, okay, I'm going to have a patent on taking over the task of driving. What kind of patent is that? You think that someone is going to give them a patent for making that silly claim? I mean, we
There's
do it.
prior art. There's already
There's
prior
lots
art.
and lots and lots and lots and
Yeah.
lots of prior art. Yeah.
And
So
it's either a joke or it's somebody thinking that they can, they'll sue Waymo and they'll do a settlement and they get rich on settlements. People do that every day. It's part of being in business. You keep a little war chest to fight off those folks that think they're being cute and whatever. And
Fred,
unfortunately, maybe the legal system in the United States permits that, or maybe in the coming, hey, maybe now with the new administration, that's just people aren't. You're not going to be. They'll take care of that one.
yeah, but I thought I looked at that, Fred. You sent it to me. I thought it was wasn't it Google? Yeah, it's Google that's looking for the
Oh
patent.
well, maybe they're just trying to protect themselves on the prior art
Yes.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? And they just thought about it, whatever, and
Yeah.
so on. I mean, I guess I prefer Elon's view. I'm going to invent it. You can go out there and do it. If you want to patent it later, I can have prior art. I'll take care of you. Get out of here. Get out of my face. Sorry, I don't know.
well,
People
Michael,
hate me.
we're keeping you up late there in Sweden, or you're missing dinner. We want to thank you for spending time with us. Always,
It's always a pleasure.
Insights.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's great, Michael. Thank you. We have a lot of work ahead of us, both in terms of what we're trying to do. We just continue to have nothing but positive response to our community engagement process, and Elizabeth and I are going forward.
Terrific. The website is michaellsena.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, on Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, wherever you turn to for podcasts. My tech reports are at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alan Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.